Very much. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Chairwoman. My first question is for Dr. Johnson. The federal definition of research misconduct was last revised over 20 years ago and was altered to take out the detrimental research practices from the definition. Is it time to revisit whether sexual harassment and other abusive behavior should be part of the federal definition of research misconduct?
Thank you. And our report recommends that sexual harassment be considered as important as research misconduct, and it really negatively impacts the integrity of science. And therefore, it is time to relook at the definition and to look at the full definition of what negatively impacts and constitutes a negative impact on research. So, yes.
Okay. Dr. Morrison, would you add anything to that? I think.
No, I think that's absolutely, it's absolutely essential that it is added to the definition.
Okay. My next question for Dr. Cass. In many of the harassment cases that have recently come to light, one running theme is that non-disclosure agreements and other privacy considerations have allowed abusers to go unchecked. In education, this often means perpetrators are able to go from university to university committing the same egregious behavior. How does UC Davis pilot program, check program assist in addressing this hurdle?
By requiring applicants to sign a disclosure agreement authorizing their previous institutions to disclose to us any substantiated charges of sexual harassment and discipline, we think that we'll be able to then mitigate that problem.
So have you been able to exercise that, or is it working so far? Is it too early to tell?
The problem, well, it's working in the sense that so far we have not had anybody applying for tenured faculty positions who have had substantiated sexual misconduct. And we can't be sure why that is, but we suspect that our program is a deterrent to them to even apply in the first place, knowing that if they did have substantiated sexual harassment, they would be forced to sign an agreement allowing their previous university to disclose it to us.
So I'm trying to be the devil's advocate here, I guess. If I was University X, where there was an issue, and now they're applying to your university, if I was at University X, I'd probably be consulting about 15 lawyers to say, look, I've got a non-disclosure agreement, and this person now sounds like he's waiving their non-disclosure agreement. That seems like a hassle or an issue. Probably.
Well, it hasn't come up so far, so we haven't had to cross that bridge. I suppose we would reach out to the university then to understand why they were not being responsive to us. Is it that they simply don't have the time, or whether or not they are declining to respond to us for unknown reasons, which would raise a red flag?
Does anybody else have any comments how we overcome the hurdle? Yeah, Dr. Johnson, please.
One thing that we had recommended in our report as a potential congressional action is that we really do away with confidentiality statements, because this is at the heart of the problem. If there are confidentiality statements that are signed, then it really it creates many barriers, as you've stated. So if we can do away with those statements, we go much farther in having much more of an open book around what institutions can or can't say.
Okay. Anybody else have any further comments on that? Okay. Thank you. I yield back.